Oh yeah, we have a good show tonight. Yeah. Hey, what's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. This is kiodiekin, and we have a special guest tonight. We have another YouTuber. He's been subscribed to the channel for quite some time. His name is Glenn Baisley. But before I bring on the guest, I know my live stream is very impromptu, which is kind of how I like it. Uh, we're going to talk about some light guns, and uh, typically, you guys know when I started this channel, I started it primarily because I saw a lot of other hobbyists in the community. They were good at one thing, but they didn't know how to integrate technology or whatever it is they were trying to do to something else, whether it had been uh, RC cars and hooking it up to computers, or whether it's been video editing in correlation with fireworks, or any other piece of technology. In fact, I actually first started this channel around 2010, 2011. I was waterproofing electronics and things like that because RC cars were expensive and there were no waterproof electronics out there. But with all that being said, today we're going to talk about light gun technology, and more specifically how it relates to this new game that's out, House of the Dead remake. Let me go ahead and pull this up here so you guys can see it. I'm going to do a little share screen there, add to the screen. And so we had a conversation earlier today. If you guys follow this thread, a lot of people jumped on this asking, would light guns work on the next gen consoles, or would there be light gun support on the PC, the Steam version for House of the Dead remake? And so, as you guys know, when a few weeks ago, actually even before this game was really announced, I've been doing a lot of extensive testing with the AE light gun on the Xbox, and also the Gun for IR that works on the Xbox too. And people said, Keel, what are you doing? You know, there are no light gun games out there, yada yada yada. But this is why we do things like this. Is if you're in the tech sector, you should know what hooks up to what could be integrated with other pieces of technology. In fact, even when I got the send-in light gun, I hooked it up to the TV, I hooked it up to the Chronos Zen, just to see if it would work or not, because that's part of the thing that you do when you're testing new forms of technology. But we're going to go ahead and get into this topic today. So let's go ahead and bring on our guest. We got Glenn. Glenn, nice to have you. Thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to finally be on. I'm a big fan of the show.
Oh, thanks. Appreciate it. So tell me a little bit about your experience. What do you know about light guns and whatnot?
I've always been a big fan of light guns. In fact, one of the cool things now that, with the new tech, I'm using Gun for IR. I have my own personal build. You got one of the transforming TVs from Buy Stuff Store. So I have a 55-inch monitor that I can rotate, play elevator action and the vertical build of that, or I can play in landscape. So, I mean, that's the cool thing with the new tech, right? You use
Right.
any size screen you want. A gun for IR supports up, I think, what, like 85-inch or bigger screens now at this point. I think the latest, the black LEDs, you can do up to over 100-inch screen.
Right.
But yeah, so I've been a big fan, since a kid with light gun stuff, dating back to duck hunting, and then so it's cool to see that we're starting to see a big resurgence, not only with retro games, of course, in the last several years, but with light guns now in the past couple of years.
Hmm. Yeah, definitely. And too, I remember just a few years ago when I first started using RetroPie in 2018, and I was in some of the groups. Some guys reached out to me because I asked them, I was like, "Hey, how do you guys use light guns on RetroPie?" And a lot of them said you have to use the Wee Dolphin bar. And so I
Yeah,
got that back in 2018 and started testing. And so, but I used to get into a lot of arguments with people in groups because people said light guns don't work on TVs, doesn't work
yeah,
on it only works on CRTs, it doesn't work on plasma. And I'm like, well, how do you explain the PlayStation 3, the GunCon 3, when you could play Time Crisis 4 on a plasma? Because I had a 50-inch plasma, you could play it on
right.
that. So the idea of light guns is pretty much taking a device and really just shooting at the screen. Whether you agree or disagree, it's a true light gun or a true light gun, or whatever technology is using. It's basically a simple device taking it, pointing it at the screen, and pulling a trigger, and you get a response.
Yeah. I mean, you think about, with light guns, I mean, the last big resurgence, prior to what we're seeing now, was Wii and PlayStation Move. And then after those systems kind of
Right.
went away, it all but died. There really wasn't anything after that. And it's kind of surprising. I mean, there's been some little things that popped up since then, but nothing that's really made an impact until Sinden came along, and then Gun for IR, and now AE Light Gun, and then the one shot, which I know you've been doing some testing with. But I mean, it's interesting that Arcade One Up now is really where it's starting to, and House of the Dead Remake is really
Hmm.
what's starting to put stuff in the forefront for people that aren't in kind of this niche, community that we're all a part of, right? I think it's introducing it more for the masses. I mean, I plunked down the money. I bought the Big Buck Hunter Arcade One Up because I'm a huge
Hmm.
fan of those games. I passed on the Terminator one. It wasn't really the ideal experience for me. I'm not as big a fan of Sinden because I don't really like the white border. I think of all the ones out there I've had a chance to try, I think Gun for IR is probably the one that's the most versatile. It's got it right. It's easy to use. It really kind of got it right. I mean, I started
Right.
out playing with that on my Legends Ultimate with the wireless battery driven sensors from RPEG, put them right around the bezel because I didn't want to drill holes into it. And
Hmm.
the gun pretty much out of the box works.
Right.
It's easy to set up. There's really not much to it for people out there. I mean, my first experience in modern stuff was using the Legends Ultimate with an aim track, because it has
Hmm.
the built-in app and it was still easy to play. But I kind of quickly outgrew that because I think there's maybe about 80 to 85 games that will work off the ROMs on the Legends Ultimate, and
Hmm.
beyond that, there's really not much more you could do. As soon as you, obviously, with Pi, there's more versatility, and with PC,
Right.
the floodgates are open. But I credit you also too with my renewed interest because, until I bought a Legends Ultimate, I hadn't really been living, breathing in the retro space as much. I was a fan of Retro Pi, just kind of getting into that. I built, got my own Arcade One Up and put a Pi in it. And it's right around the time I started discovering you dabbling with light guns, and I'm like, well, who's this guy? What is this pistolero? And and I started becoming a fan of it. I'm watching more and more of it. I'm like, oh, somebody's got to be able to bring this, to a wider audience. And then next thing you know, it's like sending overnight and Gun for Eye, and here we are
Right.
now, House of the Dead Remake, which is just a tragedy.
Right. So, just to give you guys some more information about tonight's topic, Glenn, well, actually, I think it was when the Nintendo Switch version of this game came out. Um, I went and got it, I downloaded it, and talked to a few other guys in the community, and we had our concerns. We were just wondering, like, is this a true light gun game? Because the Nintendo Switch version only responds with a gyro, and you only have the option of moving around with the controller. That's not real
Right.
light gun setting, you're looking for something like an X or a Y axis or sensitivity. It doesn't have those settings there. And so I was thinking to myself, wondering, is this a true light gun game, or they have it set up? Because I did hook up the Chronos Zen to use my Wii U controllers on the Nintendo Switch. I could shoot, if you guys saw the video, but I couldn't move around because the Nintendo Switch doesn't support what is it, a sensor mode where you can move around and stuff.
Right.
And so just started thinking more and more or less to myself, like, was this a true light gun game? So I really had my concerns about it. And then a few guys I talked to, they were using the emulator Yuzu. I think that's how you pronounce it for the Nintendo
Mhm.
Switch. Some guys were experimenting with that, but we pretty much disregarded that because now it's coming out on Steam, so there's no point with that. And so now today, Glenn sent me this link about the PC support, and everybody is asking on this thread, will the send-in light gun work on consoles? Will it work on Xbox? Will it work with PC for House of the Dead Remake? Can you use other form of light guns for this game? And so the message that was sent here that was concerning to me from the House of the Dead team: PS Move support will be patched after the premiere. So why is this a concern? And the reason why this stood out to me as a concern is that this confirms my suspicions, is that this game does not have true light gun support. Glenn, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, it's obvious too. If anybody that's already played the Switch version of it, it feels like a console game where they kind of threw in pseudo wannabe light gun support after the fact. I mean, it's not. I mean, it's so obvious just looking at the menus, and in reading the chatter that's on Steam already, with all the questions flying back and forth about what guns are supported. When I'd actually asked one of the devs about raw support, and it's just obvious that this was not made in mind with the light gun community in mind. I get it for the Switch because it is what it is. I get it for Xbox where there is no light gun support at all. But
Right.
it is kind of alarming that when you're putting it out specifically for PlayStation 4 and move support isn't there at launch, and PC that when you're asking the devs online what ones that they test it with and they didn't really have answers. Well, that tells me that it's not that hard to get these light guns. And there's obviously this game wasn't in development for 2 weeks. It's been in development. We heard about this game. God, I think it was announced shortly after Panzer Dragon was announced. What was a couple of years ago? So it's been in development for a while. How they haven't been able to fully implement true light gun support into this game for launch, um, I don't know. It remains to be seen. I mean, the game comes out, what is it, the 28th on PC. So I guess we'll find out how good of an
Well,
experience it is then.
well, it comes out on all the units on the 28th.
Right.
And so, but these statements here, PC version does support gyro aiming if your controller uses it.
Yeah.
So I'm not exactly sure what they mean by this statement,
That's
because gyro aiming is Nintendo Switch talk.
well, I
So
was gonna say you do have gyro. Well, technically, wouldn't the PlayStation controller on a PC wouldn't that support it? Technically, right? Doesn't the PlayStation
I
controller
know it
has?
has the what is it, that move, the sensor
Yeah.
uh for that, but
So maybe if you're using a PlayStation controller, I don't know. It seemed really strange to me, that response when I read that.
right.
Unless you're using, although I think you can, aren't there now drivers where you can use Joy-Cons on a computer? I don't know why you would want to, but maybe that's what
Well,
they're alluding to. I don't know how many people are doing that.
well, you can, but the thing is, typically when you're setting up a Lycon, you at least have something that says sensitivity. Like
Right.
when you guys go to your PC settings and you're setting your sensitivity for your mouse, that's what I'm talking about, where it has the cursor where you want it too sensitive, or if it's not sensitive
Yeah.
enough, you can adjust that. And then also for those of you who are familiar with setting up an arcade, when you're setting up a light gun or a trackball, you have something you can adjust with the speed for the X and the Y axis. So that's more or
Right.
less that type of setup. Now on PC, obviously you can adjust your mouse sensitivity there, but I'm wondering what it is they're talking about. So I was talking to Glenn earlier, and my belief is that they're going to have, even though this is one specific game, every game is going to have its own different option settings. So, for example, the PlayStation version is going to have PlayStation Move, and of course, the Nintendo Switch is going to say something about, do you want to use the controller to shoot or use your gyro? So, don't expect to see those same settings on PC and Xbox
Right.
or
Yeah.
on the Stadia. So all those systems are going to have their own unique settings on how you change a few things. And so with this tells me that as far as that they haven't maybe tested it with some of the current light guns on the market.
Well, I would think Xbox and Stadia is going to be just flat out controller support only and nothing else, and because we already know that, Move how far after the release date, but we know Move, the Move will be supported at some point, for the PlayStation 4 version of it. But for PC, what's interesting too is because I had asked whether or not they were going to enable RAW support
Mhm.
for the PC version, and it was kind of it was an ambiguous answer, and finally said, "Oh yeah, there'll be RAW support," but it felt like they were just literally, let's get that in there now before it gets released, because based on the responses, it was a little strange. It
Well,
could be
yeah, but the thing too is if they're releasing this on PS4 and they're patching it sometime after the release, have they actually tested PS4 Move support?
right.
Since I mean, you're expecting it's coming out on the PlayStation 4 initially, then they're going to patch it later. So if those buying it for PS4 are intending to use it with their PlayStation Move, and let's say it's just not there, they're working out tweaks and bugs to get it, then they're putting people in the position to buy it for the PlayStation 4,
Right.
kind of tease the fact that they'll be able to use some type of light gun or PlayStation Move, and
Yeah.
then you have to still buy additional adapters or whatever it is to get it to work, and they haven't tested it yet.
Right. Right. Well, and that's the thing. I was looking today to see if there was anything officially out there that showed the controller support, and I couldn't find anything that actually even says anywhere short of in the Steam discussion that Move support is coming. And the article I think I'd sent you was they had mentioned in one of the articles I sent you from one of the online sites, but there's
Right.
nothing officially from where I could find on the actual House of the Dead remake website that says it's going to support Move. So who knows how quickly that will actually happen?
Yeah, I mean, it could be a month, it could be 2 months. All I'm saying is, like, for example, we have a hard answer:
Yeah.
Xbox controller only.
Right.
PC, obviously that one's kind of up in air. Stadia, I'm not familiar with Stadia, but I take it you're just going to use a controller. That's a hard, clear cut answer. Um, I mean, I did post a few of my video clips of me using the AE light gun um, on the Xbox, on their Twitter here, but you have people asking all sorts of questions, even in fact of asking, would the send-in light gun work on the Xbox? And so just so you guys know, no, it doesn't, because the send-in light gun, out of all the light guns, it's proprietary in terms of you have to load software on the device in order to get it to work.
Yeah.
Whereas the Gun 4 and the AE light gun, you could plug it into almost pretty much anything and start shooting at a blank wall if you need to.
Well, I find the whole thing with the release in general with this game a little strange. My only guess is that Nintendo had some kind of a exclusivity for a certain period of time, and that's why none of the other platforms were announced, because it literally came out of left field that all of a sudden it's like, wow, now it's coming out
Right.
for everything else. There was nothing announced prior to it. There was no mention. I mean, they teased for Switch for how long, and there was absolutely no mention of any other platforms. I mean,
Right.
that's the only thing I could think of is Nintendo threw good money at them. But that said, it's also the kind of thing, again, when you start reading into the dev comments, it's a little alarming how much it seems like they didn't test this thing for the platforms that most people would want it for.
Right.
I mean, you think House of the Dead, it's one of the most iconic light gun games out there. It's like, well, how does it just not out of the box, for PlayStation day one have Move support? That I thought that was very, very strange.
Yeah, I don't like the fact they did this, because this happened many years ago when I bought NBA Jam on the Nintendo Wii.
Yeah.
and a few days later they released it on the Xbox 360. And fortunately, because the managers were cool with me, they allowed me to return the open
Yeah.
game, because I was like, I would rather have this game in high definition, not play it on the
Hmm.
Nintendo Wii. So
Yeah.
they've done stuff like this in the past, but as you guys can see here, is there mouse support on Steam and or Xbox? I asked because I own a send-in light gun. And so, as you guys can see here, there are some comments where people will say that it will work. Now, the interesting thing about the Xbox is that even though it does support a mouse, it doesn't support every mouse. I've
Right.
plugged in some, it doesn't take it. Obviously, the AE and the Gun 4 work out of the box. With that, I need to test it a little bit more to see what type of settings they have with this specific game. But primarily, no. It's not. And this was one of the conversations we've had in the past where people will say, "Ooh, what's the best light gun out there?" And my answer has always typically been, well, the Wii remote, because it plugs into anything.
Yeah.
It plugs in anything. There's no question about it. And so you have things like this. So my idea of the best light gun or piece of technology is not just how accurate is it, but how many other devices or units can it be integrated to? Because who
Yeah.
wants to spend $150 to $200 and only have it proprietary to one piece of device?
And it's interesting that you say that too, because when you think about the cost of some of these, probably one of the ones that's a little bit more on the expensive side is the gun for IR. Happens to be my favorite. But that's the thing, when most people look into light guns are like, oh, they see the prices of even a name track, which is on what an average, I think about 100, 150, 100, $150 somewhere in that neighborhood. But yeah, you can buy these Wiimotes dirt cheap in a Dolphin bar. You can buy them used.
Yeah,
And I mean, that's the most accessible way to get up and running light gun, and most people don't realize that. And it's relatively easy to configure. I mean, even if you aren't a tech whiz, I mean, God, you can look at one of your videos that shows you how to do it. I mean, there's a million of them
right.
out there to show you how to get up and running on it. But it just getting back to one of the things you touched on about the different ports of this game. It's interesting too. It's going to be with House of the Dead remake is to find out when the PC version comes out, just how much of a port it is between the consoles, how much effort they put into it. Are we going to get the ability to play it at 4K and adjust graphical settings, or is it literally
Mm.
just going to be milk toast version where it's the same thing and it just plays, it's optimized for PC and there's no ability to adjust resolution? That's going to be interesting.
Now, that's another interesting question, because I think that's another problem with light guns. Even, don't quote me on this, but I think even with the send-in and the gun for IR, maybe the AE light gun, they have an issue with playing games in 4K.
Yeah. Yeah.
I know there was some chat about that in terms of using light guns with 4K. I haven't seen anything about the Dolphin bar,
Yeah.
but I have seen some talk about that as far as 4K and light guns.
I don't tend to see it as much with some games that are like Blue Estate's a good one, a good example. I mean, that works really, really well. And that's a game that classically didn't have move support and it was a regular console game. So I do have hopes that maybe, I mean, obviously it's not the same studio doing it, but that's a game that was controller support only on the PlayStation.
Mhm.
Came to PC, they added raw support. It works really, really well. Does support 4K, works good. But you're right that we know, especially with some of these games that were never intended to be played in 4K, there's tricks you have to do with DPI scaling and things like that to get them to play decently on a 4K monitor, or they don't play well.
Right.
So it's going to be interesting if they even bother to allow you to play this in 4K at all.
Here's a comment here. Great. After I already bought the inferior Switch version, with horrible motion controls. Yep. I would have waited for a PS version had I known. Lame. This was announced
Yeah.
after the Switch release.
Thankfully, it's only a 25-hour game, and it's not,
Yeah.
but I gotta admit, I would have been really ticked off if I would have bought the collector's edition for Switch, and then like, oh, really? Because I played one playthrough for it, and honestly, I have no desire to ever play it again on Switch. It's that bad.
Yeah. I had too many difficulties with it. But again, guys, part of the other topic tonight is, we definitely appreciate the work the House of the Dead team. But
Yeah,
my pet peeve is when I see something release,
yeah,
there's some information tossed out, then you have to ask yourself, was how much testing went into this, because as you guys know, there are no Xbox games out there for light gun support. Obviously, the Stadia either, as far as I know. Were questionable about the PlayStation Move, and then people are saying here that you need to go buy a separate adapter. Some people are. I can't remember if somebody asked or not. Would this work on PlayStation 5? And with this, was this a true light gun game? And my
Yeah.
honest opinion, based upon everything that I'm seeing, is that no, this was not an original light gun game. This was more or less made for a joystick, but it is based in the light gun genre.
Yeah.
Now, one of the other things that I know should work, I haven't even tested myself, I'll probably do it after the stream, is that you should get light gun accuracy on the Xbox One if you use a Chrono Zen with a Wii U remote. So, as you guys know, I double and dabble with the Chrono Zen team. It's a universal gaming adapter, allows you to use other controllers on different consoles. So I used it on the Nintendo Switch, which you guys have seen, but I've never actually moved up and down, left and right, and used it in a light gun format with any game. So I could test it tomorrow, maybe tonight, but that should work, even if you can't get the accuracy done right with the AE light gun or the Gun 4.
Yeah, you talk about the PlayStation just for a moment, about PlayStation 5, because you're right. I've seen a lot of questions flying back and forth about that, and a lot of people don't realize, well, what's involved. Now, I would assume that it's being marketed for PlayStation 4. I would assume that it'll appear in the store where you should be able to download it on a PlayStation 5. But so, what is the adapter? For those of the people that don't know what that is, so on PlayStation 5, they abandoned PSVR support.
Okay.
Natively. In order to be able to hook up a PSVR, to hook up the PlayStation Move camera, you need an adapter that doesn't come packaged with the PlayStation 5. I don't know if they're still giving it away for free, but when they first launched the PlayStation 5, you could, I think for a period of time, get that adapter that allows you to hook up a PlayStation 4 camera to the PlayStation 5 for free. I think now they're charging for it.
Right.
But and that adapter doesn't even come. I don't think it comes packaged even with the PlayStation VR setup. I think it's still something you have to get separately from Sony. So you need the adapter. You need a PlayStation camera, because the camera they make for the PlayStation 5 does not work with Move controllers. It's literally just a glorified YouTuber's camera. That's all it's for content creators. Does nothing else other than that, really.
Yeah, I think I remember. So the PlayStation Move, because I wasn't even interested in that, is just a web camera, and it just depicts like a mouse movement, or how does it read when you plug it into a computer or the interface?
On the end of the Move controllers, you have those orbs. And it basically just reads the position of the light, and it's just like, it's literally all it is. And that's one of the problems with the VR tracking at PlayStation VR, and why it isn't really as perfect as other things like, say, the Oculus Quest 2, or
Mm-hmm.
even before that, the Rift and the Vive that use the Lighthouse cameras, simply because it's measuring light. If your room is too bright and it washed that out, well, it couldn't track it properly. Or if you move the lights out of um, the field of view of the camera, it can't see them. So that's really the problem with that, and why it's really not the best thing. As they start to go to, obviously, PlayStation VR 2, it's going to be inside out tracking, and the cameras will actually be built onto the headset, much in the way that we're seeing now on like the Oculus Quest 2.
And how much was the PlayStation Move?
Well, the Move controllers, I think you can buy the kit with 2 controllers. I want to say it's around like $80. I could be off. It's been a while. I still have a bunch of them floating around, but I think they're like $80, $100, something like that.
So
The
it's more
camera,
expensive than just a dolphin
yeah,
camera.
well, the camera's like $70 just for the
Oh, screw
camera.
that.
Yeah, so yeah, it's over 100. It's definitely over $100 investment to buy the controller and the camera. It's not a cheap investment if you want to be able to get it and play just this one game on your PlayStation 4. It's not, it's going to cost you more than the game's worth. Even the collector's edition's worth to be able to play it with a Move controller on the PlayStation.
No, absolutely not. That's a lot of money for
Yeah,
yeah, that's a lot of money to invest in
right.
something that
Which is
well,
probably, I was going to say, which is probably why it doesn't have the support natively right out of the gate. because how many people really have Move controllers unless you owned PlayStation VR or you happen to have them from a PlayStation 3, which is where I had mine from.
True. Well, the good thing is most people won't run out and get it, but um, I don't know. I just think that when they released this game, they should have considered that most people would want to use this
Yeah.
on use a light gun. They don't. This isn't a joystick type of game. So, will this require the PS4 camera? How will that work on a PS5s running backwards compatibility? See, people are coming in with
Yeah.
all of these questions, and I don't have a PlayStation 4. I did have one, got
Right.
rid of it, and I don't have a PlayStation 5. I wouldn't mind testing the AE light gun or PS5, but I'm not going to spend my money on everything just to test. But this is the reason why my channel exists, is to go ahead test certain things because people have questions about this.
Yep.
You
Yep.
know, it comes up like, and you see it in the groups. Hey, does this work with this? And does this work with that? And people say, I don't know.
Yeah.
You know,
I'm looking right now on it's $100 for a Move kit. Just for two controllers. That's not even the PlayStation Eye. And that's
wow.
new. You could buy them, I think, used at GameStop for like $20 for a Move controller.
All right, so here we go. From the Steam page, the developer says the game uses raw mouse input. The disable crosshair option will be patched after the premiere. Thank you for the suggestion. So
So you have
again,
crosshairs at launch on a light gun game.
I, I I don't think they anticipated people to use actual light guns.
Right. I think they were in for a big surprise. I was one of the first people to post on the Steam discussions, and it opened up the floodgates when you see all the other people. And I think it hit them over the head like, oh, I really just reading through the responses, I kind of got that vibe.
And you know, it's not so much about the fact of whether they put in raw mouse input or the disabled crosshair. Um, I wonder if you're going to get true movement or sensitivity with the light gun with the game, because
Right.
for if they're saying they're going to patch it, have they actually tested this with other forms of light guns that are out there?
Right.
I would like to see a video if they've used the Dolphin bar. The sending light gun's been out enough. Um, I can understand if they don't have a gun for our AE light gun, but at least maybe an aim track gun on PC. I would love to see
Yeah.
gameplay with an actual light gun to see how it responds. That would have been better, because in this video that you guys are looking at, I'm sure they're using a controller.
Yeah.
I highly doubt that they're using any form
Well,
of light gun. And
the
so,
fact that it barely moves from the center of the screen screams controller. And that was something we were saying before
yeah, they're using a
before
controller. Look how it moves.
yeah. Well, I was gonna say that's something we were saying before we started the video cast is what I found was interesting is a lot of people don't realize is that the source code for House of the Dead has long been lost. So this isn't it's as faithful a recreation, and I have to say recreation because it is not verbatim the original game. If you play the original game, it is very different, and I don't mind that. I don't mind that it's different, but it's not a complete remake verbatim because the original source code was lost. And one of the things that's a telltale sign that they really geared this towards towards a controller is when you play the game, and it could maybe I'm crazy, but I played, looked at a lot of videos and just even from the playthroughs that I've done so far, a lot of the zombies, a lot of the shooting happens very central to the center of the screen, not on the outskirts of the screen. So you don't have to move the cursor very far. And when you're thinking about if you're
Right.
moving a controller, you don't want to have to run that controller from one edge of the screen to the other. It's not, you don't have that kind of precision with a controller. And it just seems like it was built for the ground up, very geared towards a controller and not towards even using the Joy Cons or a light gun for that matter.
Well, and that's what my concern is when I just read some of their comments, has it actually been tested for a light gun?
Right. And I would
Um,
hope now that they're in development. They've already announced, hey, they're going to do House of the Dead remake, House of the Dead 2 remake. Really hoping they learn from this and it's better tested. I mean, they haven't even said when that's coming out. I would imagine that's been just as far in development as House of the Dead 1 remake, but who knows,
Right.
you know.
Yeah, someone's saying should be fine as the sending controls as a mouse on your monitor. Of course, that's only PC. This isn't referencing the other consoles.
Right.
Um, I don't advise anybody trying to buy if you're in the market for a light gun, buying an AE or a Gun 4 right now just to see if it would work on Xbox. I have to see all the settings and then test it because there are no other videos out there. So you guys are going to have to wait until I conduct my test to see if I get an official review on the sensitivity. Now, one of the reasons why my AE light gun was really sensitive for my last video was because the infrared bars that I have is really small. So the 2 points left and right are really close to each other in perspective to distance. So I would need something that's probably 12 inches, maybe 14-inch infrared bar to get better sensitivity and better movement because it was just too rapid. And so there was no way for me to control that motion simply by due to the game's limited, obviously it was Gears of War, but due to the game's limited mouse movement or input.
What do you think
But,
about the possibility of it working with that one shot? I know you've started testing with that.
the one shot is a whole different beast. I mean, I still need to test it. I mean, it takes so much time for me to test. I still need to firmly test it. I mean, I've talked to the developer. I mean, obviously he had it working on PC. I haven't seen it. There are no console videos of it out because there's a separate adapter for that, but obviously it works on PC. But the problem with the one shot it should work for PC. I don't see why it wouldn't because they played House of the Dead 4 with it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't see why it wouldn't. I still just got to figure out like why would it. I had the test mode for that because there's a test mode for the one shot. Worked with that, but it didn't work with the standard gun. So I was trying to get action or reaction just without playing the game. So maybe a game has to be loaded in order for it to work. I'm not sure. But yeah, actually, I accidentally left it at Bobby's house when I was over there. So Kong has it right now. He's holding it on to it for me.
I just noticed that comment about the Mars light gun. Now that was a oof.
Oh, speaking of which, before I forget that thought, so Michael B, the Game Genie, had a show tonight, and he was talking about the II Arcade and
Oh yes,
the Android IR Arcade. You guys, is that correct, Kong? Anybody in the chat? The II Arcade does use an Android-based operating system. Okay,
yeah, I'm not sure.
If it is true that it does use an Android-based operating system, I am curious to know, would the Mars gun work on II Arcade because that has Android support.
Oh, it does. I didn't realize that.
Yes, it does. And those devs were a pain in the butt because when I met them at E3 a few years ago, I asked them specifically. I was like, "Hey, can you guys make something to work for Linux? Or are you guys expanding it?" And they were like, "No, we don't want it to work with anything else. Just PC and Android, PC and Android." And that's all they were focused on. They don't even make it anymore because I was.
But that camera was such a pain to get that thing calibrated correctly. Oh, it was horrible. Right. And if you sneezed and it moved the camera, you forget about the gameplay on that.
I was intrigued by it because I had never really seen a four-person light gun game before.
Right, that's true. That's the only thing it had going for it, but it was not easy to calibrate. And every time you brought that camera out, you had to go through the whole laborious calibration process again. It was a headache to get that thing to calibrate.
Right. So for any of you out there who have a Mars gun, plug it into your IR Arcade. You'd be the first one with a light gun video out there. All right, because it has an Android-based operating system. The files should load over, so
that's interesting.
It should work. Now, while I'm on this topic, and not to just try to deviate too far from it, for those, I believe the understanding is IR Arcade is working with Sendin, or they're trying to get light gun games on there, and so they have their work cut out for them because, as you guys know, Sendin only works on PC. It has PC support. And it does not have Android support. And for those of you who don't know this, there isn't any full Linux support for the Sendin light gun either. In fact, there's a mono.exe file, which you guys can find on your PC file. That's the same file that turns the camera on and off. And so even with retropie, there is no Linux Sendin support whatsoever. So here you have a situation where a company is not just bringing a new piece of technology to the market, They're also bringing a new operating system in which it hasn't been tested. So there's going to have to be tests done upon tests. It's not like they're taking a migration from PC saying, oh, okay, we'll get it to work on our thing too, and you guys just be good to go. No, they got to build all of this stuff for the software and everything from the ground up because there is no Android support for the Sending Light Gun. That's why when you guys play your retropie devices or your Sending Light Gun and there's a new update, you have to use your PC to update. You can't just use your GitHub or download files directly through retropie to update it. That's why you typically have to go with the new image or transfer the other files over to the retropie image in order to get it to work. So we've known that for quite some time, but again, it's just peculiar to see them jumping over into a new operating system, and it was initially launched for PC and Linux support, and there is no true Linux support for the gun.
Well, it's interesting though. I mean, I don't know if you've dabbled much with the Arcade 1-Up, because I mean, if you look at the Big Buck Hunter, for example, right?
Right.
Those, I don't think they're running off a Linux system. So how are they using Syndid on the Big Buck Hunter?
They could be using some low end PC settings. I'm not exactly sure what they're using.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's a dedicated proprietary device where they have full control over it. I mean, it's not like you're playing 100 games on there or 50 different games. You're
True.
playing 1 or 2 games and you make
Though
a
the
device. So
though the tech is different on anyway, because I remember watching one of the streams that Bkong had revealed, is the fact that see, there you go, is that they're not even the same gun that you would buy, directly from Sinden. You can't just plug those into the PC to begin with. So yeah, okay, so there you go. So if that's Android based, I'm kind of curious of what they're doing, with Terminator 2 and Big Buck Hunter. So I mean, they could in theory do something similar on iArcade.
yeah, you know what? I wonder if IR Arcade knew that the Mars bar or Mars, what is it? The Mars gun, Mars
Gun,
PDP.
yeah.
Yeah, Mars gun
Mars
was
PDP, yeah.
Android based.
I didn't realize that. That's interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, seriously, when I met that guy at E3, he just totally shut it down. He was like, no, we don't want it to work with anything else, just PC and Android. I was like, all right.
They need to bring Voyage of the Dead to PC. I like that game. It's just a shame it was released for that gun.
Oh. Well, unless somebody decides to hack it or do some mods to it and stuff. But that was an interesting game too. I don't like seeing technology like that go to waste.
Yeah. Because I mean, it was short-lived. It came out. It really didn't do well. They released, I think, Qubit. There was the hunting game, right? There was a Buck Hunter game. There was Voyage of the Dead. There might have been one other gun gun game, and that was it. It was gone. It came out for PlayStation, Xbox, and that was it.
Right. Yeah. Here you have a comment here. Make Connect Xbox One great again.
Oh, coded from scratch. That's interesting. Thanks, B.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, so make Connect Xbox One great again. So yeah, I'm not going to get into that story. There's something we know about that, but we'll keep moving on to the comments. But yeah, pretty much I just wanted to shed light, in regards to the light gun technology, and how it works. I do know that Gun 4 IR. Well, I actually haven't plugged it in yet, but I know the AE light gun does work on PlayStation 3. There's some sensitivity issues as far as how to connect, but it did respond. But I thought it was weird that I had a better reaction with Xbox One than I did PlayStation 3.
Now, is that plugged in directly without any other third-party interfaces?
That's right.
Wow.
The Gun 4 IR and the AE light gun will connect directly and interface with the Xbox One.
Really? And what about Gun 4 IR on PlayStation 3? You said yes or
no? I haven't tried it.
Oh, see, now I have to try that now.
I just haven't plugged it in. I mean, when I'm testing all this stuff, I plug the Gun 4 IR into the AE light gun directly into the Titan 2 and the Chrono Zen. Sometimes I got a response, sometimes I didn't.
Wow.
But again, I haven't had a chance to do that. I mean, maybe it should respond to the PlayStation 4.
Right.
PlayStation 5 is really finicky because not even Chrono Zen works perfectly with that. So yeah, the PlayStation 5 is a beast in terms of its encryption right now. It's a pain in the butt for a lot of guys.
Yeah, I'm curious of how that's going to be supported with peripherals when PSVR 2 comes around.
Mm. So, what peripherals uh, are capable of working on the PS4 and the PS5?
Well, any as long as you have the PlayStation Eye for compatible Eye for the PlayStation 4, and you have the adapter to put it on the PS5, anything that worked on the PS4 will work on it.
Hmm. Okay.
So you have you have the aim controller. It looks like that the rifle for PlayStation 4, and of course the regular move controllers. So those will work completely on it as long as you're using it with the PlayStation 4 Eye.
Right. Yeah. See, here you have everybody's pulling out their old PlayStation controllers and
Yep.
PlayStation guns.
Getting ready. I have a couple of those, the hard shells.
Right. Well,
And
thank
it
goodness.
worked well. I mean, I still think the Wii controller is probably the best, but the Move controller worked pretty good. I mean, I
Mhm.
love Dead Storm Pirates, all those games. I mean, they worked well enough for it.
Yeah. Who is this right here? If limited run games team up with them again and then again, that should be the case. We don't know how long it'll take for the PS4 Move patch to be added. See, they don't know. So that's a concern for me because not so
Yeah,
much of the fact that they're going to release it, that's fine, but you have a period of testing before you release it.
yeah,
And it's not as though they are making the patch the same time they're releasing the game. They're going to release the game, and then you have no idea when the patch is going to come out,
right.
which means people who may want to say, "Oh, okay, well they're going to release the patch, so I'll buy it on PlayStation 4." But what if the patch isn't all cracked up to be what it needs
Yeah.
to be, and then now they have to buy the game twice and just say, "Well, I'll just buy it for PC or Steam."
Well, it's also they're shooting themselves in the foot by not having it at launch because you're going to discourage people from buying it. They're going to hold off to wait and say, "Oh, does it have the move support?" I mean, I think because the game's cheap enough when it
Hmm.
comes, I wouldn't pick it up at launch. But once they have move support, I'll pick it up just to have it. Why not? Um, I certainly, if it was a $60 game, no way would I do it. But for 25 bucks, I'll pick it up. It wouldn't surprise me, a year from now, that'll be one of those games that'll be on the PlayStation Plus subscription thing for free anyway.
Yeah. But again, I just think that we should see advertisement of the game being used with Xbox and um the other systems because they haven't actually said, because even in the video that's at the very top, they haven't indicated what system that was on.
Right.
So unless there's just how it's going to play across all systems.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I know they put out a PC trailer, but honestly, when I looked at the PC trailer, it didn't look any different than anything you saw on the Switch trailer. So
Somebody said those are
other than the
buttons.
branding at the end, it's like coming for soon for PC. It's.
Right. Well, we'll see. But again, guys, I just wanted to spotlight this because let me scroll back up because there are a lot of questions here, and
Yeah.
I've been testing this now for a few weeks as far as light guns operating on next gen consoles, and people, were like, Keo, why are you going to show? Like, who cares? Like, what's the whole point of that? Because that's what I do. Plugging in the AE light gun and the gun for IR, see how it responds, and lo and behold, we have something like this. And what we'll really have to wait and see. But I just hope they've tested this.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, like again, you look at the fact that there's no option right out of the gate to turn off crosshairs. I thought it's just a little odd to me. This goes to show, well, it's not very well thought out. You're saying it's for support light guns, but if you're really in tune with the community, for who wants to play with? I'm sorry, maybe it's just me, but I don't like playing with crosshairs. I'll even look for patches for games that do have crosshairs. Just take them out. I hate the crosshairs. It's a cheat.
Yeah, but why would they release a light gun based game and not anticipate some type of hardware to work with it?
Well, that's
I
the
mean,
thing.
honestly,
So,
they expect. I mean, based upon some of the comments that we're seeing, they just anticipated people to use a controller and say, "Hey, there you go have fun."
yeah, 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 pretty much, pretty much. It's.
Because why wouldn't you make a light gun based trailer even for
Hmm.
just PC for Steam?
Yeah.
Like here's somebody shooting at the screen.
Reminds me back in the day, what was it? One of the games that never saw a proper release for a light gun was Silent Scope.
Oh yeah, I remember
It was just with a controller. It's like, okay, but
that. Wow. So heads up, guys, get ready for the influx of new customers and people into the hobby. For those of you running light gun based game groups, you're going to have a bunch of these people jumping in trying to figure out how to get some type of light gun to work on the Xbox, how to get a light gun working on PlayStation 4. I don't have one to fully test. So if you guys want to mail me one, send a gift card, whatever, go ahead. I'd appreciate that.
Well, I'll definitely
Um,
check my gun for IR out on the PlayStation. Now I'm very curious to see. I'm check it out on see how that works.
yeah, what size TV do you have?
I have it hooked up to 65 inch.
Is that the same TV that you have it calibrated to?
No, well, no, actually, but I can move it. I mean, I have a whole bunch of different setups, so I can move it to anything. I mean, the one that I'm using right now, I have it calibrated to a 55 inch. So I mean, the easy way is just to move the PlayStation up to there where it's already calibrated.
Yeah. Keep it on a TV that's already calibrated. Then
Yeah,
plug it in, see if you get some movement. But the other part of it is as far as button configuration. Obviously, there should be a way to map the trigger button to this. In fact, this is Gears of War 5. I had a much easier time mapping the trigger button to Gears of War 5
right.
shooting than I did Gears of War 4. So Gears of War 4 doesn't have the setting to map the trigger button, even though it does work. It just didn't have that.
I'm trying to think. I think if I'm thinking of any of the PlayStation, well, you said you tried a gun for IR on PlayStation 3 or no?
No, I haven't tried. I tried the
Okay.
AE, and the sensitivity went all the
Yeah.
way over to the right side of the screen without me having to do anything, and it just wouldn't move.
Yeah, I'll
So
try it on the PlayStation 3 because I have every light gun game they made for the PlayStation 3. So I'll try it on that first. But if memory serves me correctly, I don't know that any of those have mappable buttons for those games.
no, and the problem with the PlayStation 3 versus PlayStation 4 and even the Xbox One was that like games like Time Crisis 4,
Mhm.
uh, the game loaded the drivers for the light gun.
Right.
So even if you try to plug in any other type of device, like even the light gun doesn't work
Yeah.
with PlayStation 3 in the menu. So you even if you plug in the gun for IR, obviously I think it would work in the menu screen, but it's not going to guarantee it working for the game because
Right.
you're going to
Right.
see different drivers.
Yeah. That's a good point. Yeah. The only way around that, right, is we know is an emulation. Then, and even that's a pain. Not everything emulates well for PlayStation 3, but I'll have to try that tomorrow. That's it's going to be an interesting test to see. But I suspect you're right. It'll work on the menu and probably not go any further than that.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, probably. Yeah, see, plug it in, see what happens.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
yeah,
it'll be
for
interesting to
those of
test.
yeah, but please, if any of you are a subscriber or whatever, and you have that Mars PDP light gun, try it on the IR arcade. I'm not familiar with all the schematics in terms of downloading software. Is the IR arcade locked down? Can you download software to it?
I think it's pretty well locked down from what I've read. I don't own one, but from everything I've read and heard
Mhm.
about, they have it pretty well locked down.
Well, hopefully, if somebody knows the devs on that team, then tell them to download the software and see if it works because it would interface. It should interface with their device.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Definitely. Well, like we mentioned too, I think, or maybe we didn't mention on the stream, we were talking about GRS has announced that they're partnering with Sinden to some capacity. What that actually is hasn't been revealed yet. But I'd be very curious to see what Glenn's take is on the whole iArcade thing as well, because that's been the hot rumor is that light guns may be coming to IR Arcade, but it hasn't officially been confirmed, right? From what we've heard.
Yeah, it shouldn't be. Now, does IR Arcade have uh does it have USB support for mouse?
I don't know if anybody's in the chat. I don't know.
Let's
I don't
see.
know if
Kong says
Kong, do you if he
there's
has
no
one?
USB port on it for the OG one, but the new
Ah,
gold edition is rumored to have USB ports. So if
that
it
would make
has
sense.
USB ports, then I don't see the reason, or if it takes a
Yeah,
mouse import, or if you're able to use a wireless keyboard or something, I don't see why you shouldn't be able to use the Wii Dolphin bar
right. Well,
because
also
there was.
I was
Go
going to
ahead.
say one of the worst kept secrets is that from my understanding is the iArcade is going to have swappable decks like the Legends Ultimate does. So I mean, how hard would it be for them to come out with something to basically give you what you need in terms of
Mhm.
an interface to connect the light gun to it? And then it just comes down to the software support.
Right. Yeah. Um, yeah, that's going to be interesting how they integrate all that too, because if the system is fully locked down, then how would people adjust their send in light gun for day or night sensitivities on the cab? Because you can't do that
Right.
even on the arcade one up big buck hunter and
No.
Terminator cabs.
Right. There's no adjustment for that at all. And I've run into actually problems with that. I actually had to move my cabinet because it was I was getting too much bright backlighting that was washing across the screen from behind, and it would cause a problem. I had to actually relocate my cabinet. Now it works fine, but that
Mhm.
that is an issue if it washes it out, which is why it's funny because you do have the flexibility of changing the color of the border, but why most cases the whites used is because there's the most contrast with the border. But I mean, it can be adjusted to different colors, but you usually rarely ever see that because you need
Aim
the high contrast, for it to be able to find the border.
right. Is somebody asking for aim track support? Is that what that is? Aim
Aim
controller
controller.
support?
Oh, an aim controller is the PlayStation Move controller. That's the
Oh,
one that looks like the rifle. I mean, if
oh,
there's no well, I mean, the only thing that you have extra on the aim controller is you have an analog stick. But I mean, other than that, I mean, I can't imagine it wouldn't work on there. It
oh
uses the
wow.
trigger. I would think it would. The aim controller would probably work with it.
Right. Well, I'm curious to see. I mean, I know a lot of people have, obviously that announcement was made tonight, but it's no easy feat because they got to test from the ground up in terms of sending light gun being used with the Android based operating system. Work out all the bugs. I mean, it's a brand new, even though the unit itself, the hardware has been out for some time, you're starting from scratch because it's
Yeah.
a brand new operating system. Just to give you guys some insight, when I was testing or actually when I made my retropie images, I was testing the advancements of what the Pi could really do or not. Like if I made an image right now, it'd be really easy because we know what the Pi 4 can handle. But
Right.
when you're trying to test the limits of the technology and also make something for public use, there's just so many things you're testing. And I've seen, in fact, I did a review on it just a few weeks ago, the CoinOps image, that came out. I just had some concerns about it because in order to make a really good image, you got to fully load it up with everything.
Right.
Everything, trackball games, light gun games, settings and stuff. See how everything works with one another, changing from different game types and different emulator cores. You can't just slap a few games on there and then think you have something running. Let's say you have an image with 200 games, you think it's running, but then you add another several thousand, and then something's broken or something's not running
Yeah.
right. So you got to fully load it down. So this is what I would do in my process when making an image is I would load it down with about 10,000 games just for the hell of it and go between each one, game and test system stability to
Right.
see how it will work with different stuff running in the background, bouncing back and forth between different menus. That's why if you can't just make an image with a couple of games on there and think you have stability because somebody else may take it, load it up with trackball games and light gun games and everything else in between, and then you have a different experience than what you intended.
Yeah. For sure. Well, I look at, like, for example, I'm involved with I backed the Kickstarter campaign, and I think you did too for Bang Bang Pew Pew, right?
Right.
And small developer, light gun game, very similar to Point Blank, and that style with modern challenges to it for those that aren't familiar with the game. But you look at that, and speaking to the dev for that, I mean, he's tested all the different light guns and all the different scenarios. And now when you read again, going back to just the communications back and forth today that were in Steam, it makes me really scratch my head. I'm like, well, how much testing did they do? And this is a marquee title. It's not like this is a game that nobody's really ever heard of. This is one of the most iconic, like gun shooters out there. And it's like, how have you not put this to the paces? It doesn't
hey,
make sense.
hey, my saying is this: did you really test it? I mean,
Right.
like, did you really? test it. Like when I see questions in, either some of the retropie groups or arcade groups, and I see people saying, no, it won't work, and you blah, blah, this and blah, blah, that, you just have to turn around and say, did you honestly plug it in and test it
Yeah.
and get some type of experience? And
Well, one of the comments was like, well, it should work with the Sinden because the Sinden works like a mouse. It should work. It's like, where's the response? Like, yes, we definitely tested it. It works on the AE. There was no emphatic response that was like 100% like, yes, we tested on this, and this. It's like,
yeah, if you're a developer, you're talking about it should work, and I mean that's not concrete, and
right,
you got to keep in mind, like even the sending light gun, it's a web camera, and the true definition that makes the thing a light gun is the software.
right,
Without the software, you can't do anything with the gun.
yeah,
Like the AE light gun, the gun 4, I could plug it into anything and it pretty much works.
yeah, yeah,
It has the hardware is built in, it's set up outside the system. So like even right now, if you have an Android based PC or even a Mac, the sending light gun wouldn't work. I do strongly believe the Gun 4 IR and the AE light gun would work on an Android based system and also a Mac because it just recognizes and responds as a mouse. So
right, right. You've got the the board. Everything is already programmed in there. There's no external software. I mean, you have the one-time calibration, but once it's set up, I mean, honestly, you could probably, without even using the calibration software, I'm sure you could get it to work without even using the calibration software. I mean,
yeah,
I
like
think
when I did that video for the Gun 4 IR, I didn't calibrate anything. I haven't
right,
even connected it to the computer yet to
yeah,
calibrate it. But you should at least have some type of response is the
right.
biggest issue.
Right. Yeah, I think the first time I ever used my Gun for IR, I didn't calibrate it right away. I was eager to try it, and it worked right out of the box. And honestly, after the calibration, it improved it, but it was already that good that I really didn't need to do much in the way of a calibration at all. And I think it really is only going to apply mostly the calibration. The larger screens, you're definitely going to want to calibrate it for. But from the size screens that most people are probably using this with, out of the box, it's pretty much just going to work.
Oh Lord, looks like somebody called him out already. Your Steam page is clearly a copy and
Without
paste
a
from
doubt.
Switch. It even talks about gyro aiming. I was wondering about that too. Like, why would they use the terminology gyro aiming?
Yeah. Yeah. Somebody just copied and pasted because that's what I'm saying.
PC
I'm like,
version.
well,
Yeah, there it is. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to say there's the DualShock that has gyro controls in it, but I'm like, how many people are really going to use that on the PC? With I just can't see that happening. You're not hooking a move controller up, to your PC with the camera. At that point, it's, I mean, I suppose you probably could get that to work.
Right.
Somehow. It's not going to natively, with some kind of reverse engineering. Somebody like you could probably get it to work, but natively it's not going to work. I mean, who's using a DualShock to play this game on PC? You're either going to use it with a light gun, a controller, or a mouse. That's it.
Yeah, I like this guy's comment. While the PS version with PlayStation Move support will be an upgraded way to play for sure, I can't help feel a little misled. I just purchased this for Switch, assuming any future ports would be at least a year or so away.
Yeah, I was very surprised.
Yeah. Well, like I told you, that's what happened back in 2007, 2008 when I got NBA Jam for the Wii, and then a few days later, it came out on Xbox.
Yeah, my guess is it's just Nintendo threw them a boatload of money and like, we want this to sell as many as we can quickly sell before you announce it for other platforms.
Let's see. There's no way I would have picked us up on the Switch version with this dodgy graphics and frame rate issues if I knew I would have picked it up on the Series X a month later. Wow. Let's see. What are some of the comments under this? Was this an exclusivity deal? If so, what kind of deal lasts less than a month?
Yeah. Something interesting too is, and I haven't really read in many of the reviews, just talking about, forget about the controls for a second, just the game in general. Now, I mean, I love House of the Dead, and I played Scarlet Dawn recently, and I'm a fan of all of them. what I was surprised at, it's like, okay, you're doing a remake. It's still
Mhm.
just how cartoony the graphics are. When I mean, look, you look at a game like recently is Scarlet Dawn, where the graphics are so much better, and we know the Switch is capable of running substantially better graphics. So I was also surprised to see just how inferior. I don't know. I guess I was a little disappointed because when I saw the trailers early on, I'm like, wow, it looked better in the trailer than when I actually played it, got to play it. I'm like, the graphics don't look as good as they could have been, I guess, right? Does that make sense?
Right.
I was a little disappointed with it. I mean, don't get me
Yeah,
wrong, I love anything with light guns, and I'm happy to play it because House of the Dead's a favorite of mine, but I don't know. It felt like it suffered. It could have been a little bit better graphically.
right. Do you happen to know if the original codes for the game work?
I haven't tried that. That's a good point. I haven't tried that.
Because I mean, back in the day, there was a player one and player two code where you can use the same characters on either side, and then there was
Right.
also a Sophie code. I tried those, but I never had the chance to use the super gun code. I don't know why I never
Yeah.
tried it.
Did the selfie code work at all?
Well, back in the day on the arcade, I mean, I used to play,
Oh, okay.
with Sophie all the time.
Yeah, I haven't tried the codes on the new one. Honestly, yeah, that's a good point. I forgot about that.
Yeah,
That's a
so
good
it's funny
point.
here. It's a
See that
light gun
I could
shooter.
see
How are
that
you
being
going
the
to play it on the Series X?
right.
I should. Hey, somebody send this guy my channel link. Um, but yeah, we'll have to see because I mean I know it's a whole remake and everything, but
Yeah.
I wonder if they transported or transpose everything over from the original game. So what makes this a VR game? Now, other people were asking, are they going to make a VR game based out of this? Now, that would be really interesting and cool.
I'd love to see them do so. And honestly, I'm surprised that they haven't done from the ground up a brand new House of the Dead for the Quest 2. I mean,
Mm,
if any property was ripe for a remake from the ground up, it's like it's House of the Dead.
right.
I mean, you already have. I mean, well, of course, there's so many rip-offs, to rail shooters that I think there was there's one called I'm blanking because it feels like a House of the Dead set in a farm. It was originally on the Rift and they ported it over for the Quest 2, but it's set on a farm. Feels very much like a House of the Dead style game. But then there's VR Brigade, I think it's called, or something like that, or VR Gate, which is it's like Time Crisis. It's kind of a sort of a Time Crisis ripoff.
Right.
But I'd love to see an official from the ground up VR House of the Dead. That'd be awesome.
Wow. Yeah, that would be pretty nice to see that from the ground up, have them build up on something like that.
Yeah, for sure.
What OS does the Stadia use? Is it Android?
I think it's Android.
Hmm. Or
Yeah,
the
I don't have a
Stadia app on
Stadia.
Android will look at the way that you move your phone or approach the game accordingly. Yeah, so here I hope we get light gun games again somehow.
Well, I
Uh,
think if anything, good or bad with this remake is it's certainly brought light guns back into the forefront for the masses.
hmm You know what? I don't think light guns actually went anywhere. I just think there's so much misinformation out there
Yeah,
where games like Call of Duty and Medal of Honor and other games really took the forefront, the first
yeah,
person shooter, where light gun games really took the back seat because they weren't as action packed and you couldn't move around. I mean, the game moves you into
yeah.
positions to do that for you. So I think that's it. But yeah, I mean, the PlayStation 3, PlayStation 2
Well,
had plenty of light gun
right. Oh,
games.
yeah. 2 and 3. I mean, you saw a big boom with the move, and then when they went to PlayStation 4, they pretty much abandoned it.
Yeah, because I remember too, like even they stopped development with the Xbox Connect. I mean, the whole
Right.
idea was to get people off of a sofa and
Yep.
have them doing things. In fact, even if you remember when the Nintendo Wii came out, it was a whole aspect of people being able to shoot at a screen and jump behind your sofa and duck and cover and do all
Yeah.
that, other kind of stuff. But when people get home, they don't want to sweat and get a workout playing the game, so they got rid of all of that type of development.
And there's a system when you talk about the Wii, just how many light gun games came out for the Wii. I mean, oh, it's staggering when you think about how many came out. Original ones, even classic ones that they brought back. I mean, it's the it's funny because I had sold my Wii off and then bought it back a couple of years ago. And at that point, I mean, now you can go in GameStop and find discs dirt cheap. So I was buying up just about every single thing, and it just seemed like it was never ending when you started looking into how many dozens and dozens of light gun games were released,
Right.
one form or another for the Wii. Um,
Oh
and
Lord,
then
here we go.
and yeah,
Here we go right here. Here we go. Also, the TV technology changed. No more CRT. Light guns didn't and or couldn't advance with them until very recently.
right.
Oh Lord, I'm gonna reply. Here we go.
Yep, there you go. It's like you said earlier, it's like everybody is an expert when it comes to light guns,
Yeah.
or they think they are.
Yeah, I still have my PlayStation 3. I played that on my plasma 50-inch plasma TV for years.
Yep. Yeah,
Yeah,
was what
so
the it was. I was gonna say one of the last iterations of the gun con that came out. They had was I think they were IR sensors that you just sat on the top. There was two of them,
mhm.
one on each end. The problem was as TVs got bigger, you really couldn't play with it because they weren't wide enough unless you actually just modded the cable. So you couldn't get to the edges of the screen as TVs got bigger.
Well, I know they have really good sensors for like the PlayStation 3. I mean, like mine's was
Yeah.
50 inches, and I don't remember when I got Time Crisis if there was a distance uh uh setting in terms of how far I should have been, standing back, but uh it didn't say it wouldn't have worked on a 50-inch or it was only work up
Well,
to
it would work,
65.
but what happened was because they were supposed to be a certain distance apart, the two sensors, to be able
Right,
and they were supposed to be in line with the edges of the screen. But as TVs got bigger, the sensors had a limited length of cable between
right,
them, so you couldn't get to the edges of the screen at some point anymore unless you actually cut and modded the sensor cable.
right. We got a comment here from Besnak, and I totally agree with this. My guess is that devs half-ass some things like much the text descriptions. Yep, they
Yeah.
probably figure they can get people to double dip since no
Hmm.
one would want to get the Switch version currently. Now, I do believe that obviously due to licensing, a lot of this stuff was already pre-worked out before
Oh yeah.
it came out because they couldn't have, get this. But again, I'm concerned because whatever usually when you do licensing deals and stuff, you already know this stuff at least a year and a half
Right.
advance. So keep this in mind, a year and a half in advance, and they don't have a patch release for the PlayStation Move for PlayStation.
Well, that's the point.
That's concerning.
How is that not at launch? I mean, that's what I'm saying. It's not like it's not like this is some like a generic FPS. It's one of the most iconic light gun games ever. They had to have expected that people are going to want to be able to play this as a light gun game. So how they didn't have that at launch, it's games are years in development. It's mind-boggling.
And none of these guys have a dolphin bar
Yeah,
or ascendant. You mean none of them? You mean we don't have any footage of
right.
anybody using this on PC with a light gun? Really?
Yeah. And you can't tell me if they hadn't reached out to, the Ascendant Direct or Gun for IR or whatever. I'm sure they could have gotten test models for free just to be able to put in the promotion. Works with Gun for IR, like that's free press. Works with Sinden, works for Gun for IR. All these guys would have given them guns to test it with.
They got people laying around with this technology. I mean, even if
Sure.
you have a dolphin bar or something, they could
Yeah,
have plugged in. Heck, even an aim track gun. You know,
absolutely.
somebody on that development team has something
Yeah,
to test it with. Because how do you make a light gun game and then turn around?
right.
Well, that's light gun based, and say, well, we only have a controller.
Yeah.
Mm. All right. Any final questions in the chat? I know you guys have been watching now. We've been going on now for about an hour and 16 minutes, and definitely appreciate the feedback here. Thank you guys for watching us at this impromptu live stream. But these are all the concerns that I have, and I'm not trying to nitpick on some of these companies, but people are doing some very idiotic things, and they pass on those idiotic tendencies to customers who are paying their hard-earned cash to, because put it this way, none of these questions on here should exist.
Yeah.
People should not have a question on here about whether the send-in works for Xbox or will this work with aim track and all these other questions. How hard is it just to make a README file to say we've tested this game with this, and this? It should work with this, and this, and here's some video proof.
It should be right on the store page. I mean, it should be right on the front of the store page as a bullet point, tested with, or list the guns it's compatible with, or on the right side of the Steam page. You shouldn't have to dig for it. You shouldn't have to get into a discussion, start asking the devs to respond about something that should just be there, whether, cut to the chase. It either does work or doesn't work, or what are the limitations and what
Yeah, this is 2022. Don't tell me somebody can't have a light gun by now.
Right.
I mean, they're sending light guns on eBay. You guys could, they could have been in some of these groups. A Wii Dolphin bar, you just go to your local pawn shop, or eBay, go buy a Wii remote and a Dolphin bar for $7 and test and record some videos. I mean, that's what we do.
Yep.
That's what we do. All right, you guys all, thank you for chiming in tonight. Thank you guys for watching. Please make sure you share this video. And I know the release is going to come out here in a few days. What's today's date? The 25th. So we got 3 more days, and there's going to be a lot of technical questions being asked in the group. And there's going to be I know there's going to be some pissed off people, and there's going to be some people saying, hey, well, I bought this for Xbox. I want to use a light gun. What can I do with it? So it's all going to be here for you. Glenn, any last thoughts?
No, I'm going to be curious to see what happens when this comes out, what the reaction is for people playing on PC. I'm just waiting to see, because if you think it's blowing up on the Steam discussions now, it's only going to get worse.
Yeah, I want to see the settings. I want to see what settings are in there for PC.
I mean, after playing the Switch version, honestly, I'm not hopeful. I'm going to pick it up for sure because it's cheap enough, and I'm hoping it plays well, but I'm not very optimistic after the Switch version. Like I said, I played through it once, and I plan on never playing it again on the Switch, and it's a shame because the controls just ruin the game.
Yeah. It did. I mean, especially when you're thinking you're trying to play a light gun based game. It's what it is. Right. All right, fellas, you guys all have a good night. We'll catch you guys tomorrow. Like and subscribe, and also check out my firework channel, kiodiekin. Appreciate all the support, and don't forget, I do have an exclusive hobby group, Kiodiekin Hobbies, on Facebook. Catch you later. Peace out.